It's rare that anti-vaxxers have been as a big part of the news cycle as they are right now, and rare too that what they do or don't do can have as big of a potential impact on public health as is right now. So why don't we take a stroll through history and learn a little bit about some of the work that led to this movement? We're very lucky to be joined on the show today by the author of The Big Lie: How One Doctor's Medical Fraud Launched Today's Deadly Anti-Vax Movement. Kurt Eichenwald, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Very glad to have you on. As we were talking about before we started this, very timely. Anti-vaxxers seem to be all over the place. So I'm assuming this required quite a bit of work that predates the current period. What led to you wanting to write this sort of history of how this sort of thing got started?
Primarily, it was from having run into somebody at a party who was an anti-vaxxer. And this was a year and a half ago. And the person started giving a series of explanations that I knew were all false. And no matter what attempt I made to go, to explain why they were false, he stuck with it. And so I decided that it was really important for people to try and understand where this stuff came from, how it really is birthed out of a pile of fraud. And unfortunately, it is now very relevant. And the very same person that I write about in The Big Lie is now out there giving at rallies with General Mike Flynn and Mr. Pillow Guy and all the general villains. And he is telling people why COVID vaccines are dangerous. And the man has no qualifications, but that doesn't stop everybody from listening to him.
Interesting. So why don't we talk about his work back in the day? So this is Andrew Wakefield that you're talking about there. What was it that Andrew Wakefield did?
Well, the element of the story, you sort of have to start with what everybody knows, which was his study that claimed vaccines cause autism. But then you have to back up a few years because this was not something I knew before I started doing the reporting. Wakefield had been obsessed with what's called the MMR, the measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine. It's a triple vaccine that has been a godsend. I mean, there are untold numbers of people whose lives have been saved because of it. But Wakefield became obsessed with this vaccine around 1993. And he said that it caused Crohn's disease, which, by the way, is his only area of expertise. He's not a scientist. He is a gastroenterologist. And when that study was blown away, he clearly was extremely upset. He was angry at the British government because he thought the British government should do, a national warning that, vaccines cause Crohn's disease. And he didn't get it. And so he kept attacking. And when he couldn't get it done in journals, he started going into the general media, not getting the attention he so clearly wanted. And then a mother of a child with autism came to him, and she spun this vast theory that the MMR causes an intestinal disease that no one has ever heard of that results in a shortage of B12 getting to the brain and a leakage of particular entities that go to the brain and cause neurological damage. I mean, you're talking about a study that would require thousands of people, and piece by piece, you can't just do all of it at once. And what Wakefield did was he took 12 kids and had no evidence that any of this happened. He just had initial evidence that kids with autism had occasionally had intestinal problems. which is true, which has been known for a long time. But he declared that meant vaccines cause autism. I'm sorry, the MMR causes autism, and he from there just kept going. His fellow scientists on that study were outraged. It doesn't show anything like that. The study does not show that. But Wakefield knew how to get headline.
And it's very widely believed even to this day, despite the evaluation of that study. Many people seem to believe that either that particular vaccine causes autism or just, I don't know, I guess vaccines cause autism. You see this sort of thing pretty commonly online.
Well, and the thing that you have to know, I mean, I was being nice to Wakefield right then. Here's the ugliest part. He committed fraud and he knew it. Even with the small amount of work he did, he attributed it to 8 out of 12 parents say that there was a temporal connection between the vaccine and the development of autism within 14 days. Well, that was a lie. It was as much as 2 years. Then it was 8 out of 12. Well, there was a reason, because he dropped a series of other parents who said, no, I saw no connection. 8 out of 12 is a big number. The actual number of the people he tested, of the people he interviewed who said that was less than 6%. You get the MMR about the same time as you develop autism. They are, normally, if you didn't give someone the MMR and they developed autism, it would be in the same time period. And so is this just a coincidence of time? If it's like saying, oh, people who are 99 die. Well, it must be connected to the fact that they got the COVID vaccine, which people are saying now. And it's like, no, people who are 99 die. But then you have to do with what his selection was. He was secretly taking money to participate in a class action lawsuit against the vaccine makers, which was claiming that the MMR causes autism. And he got somewhere near £500,000 and is suddenly declaring, oh, this thing I'm working on that I'm not telling anybody about does this. And by the way, the children I'm picking, the majority of them are plaintiffs in that lawsuit. It
seems like a conflict of
interest. No kidding. And he would lie about what he was doing. He would lie about who he was including. He would pick and choose. Other data that contradicted what he wanted to believe was ignored. The key to the whole thing was, did he find measles viruses in the intestines of these children? Well, the people who were testing in his lab said no, that there was some contamination that was caused by incompetence, but there was never an incident where there was never once where there an incident where the measles virus was found in the intestine of these kids. He reported it was, and the more I dug into this story, the more horrified I was. It was a fraud on infinite levels. It was a lie on infinite levels. There's a reason why every other study ever conducted established that this is garbage. And remember, you're talking about 8 out of 12 parents who were involved in a lawsuit I think it was only 7 who were involved in the lawsuit, though, who were involved in a lawsuit to claim the MMR caused autism, said, oh yeah, the MMR caused my child's autism. We noticed the timing was identical.
Yeah.
So, and as you go on and Wakefield is exposed, his corruption is exposed, his lies are exposed, his fraud is exposed. And ultimately, he had what is the equivalent of losing his medical license in Britain. He was no longer, he was what's called struck from the National Health Service listing. And that was the moment in 2010, first time I can find, everything here was about the MMR. He leaves that finding by the what's called the General Medical Council, walks out, gets on the Today Show and says, for the first time that I can find, vaccines cause autism. Not the MMR, vaccines. And again, there were no new studies. It was all the 1998 pile of garbage. And he has gone on and on and on. You know, he was meeting with Donald Trump in 2016, and then Trump got up at a debate and lied that, oh yeah, some person who worked for me had a child who had autism, who got the MMR and immediately had autism. You know, which has never happened in history. There's a lot.
I remember. So I do have a question about that because as you allude to, there's a link with Trump there. And as you say, he's still out there saying, you know, you shouldn't take this vaccine, but this is a vaccine that Trump helped to fund some of them and is promoting to this day that he took himself. That would seem like a bit of a contradiction.
Oh.
Why does Trump want to give people autism then?
Well, no. He's not saying that the COVID vaccine gives autism. He's smart enough not to go there. At least I don't think. I mean, God knows what he says. But what he does say, you know, he talks about Jurassic Park. He talks about biomedical engineering. He talks about transformation of DNA. He talks of all this stuff that shows that he is either the stupidest man walking the planet or he's a liar. And, you know, ultimately, now a lot of people who knew him back in the day told me, oh, he's both incredibly stupid, incredibly narcissistic, and doesn't know how science works. I don't know what the answer is. What I do know is that, you know, this one-time almost nobody gastroenterologist doing incredibly narrow research about blood vessels in the intestine is now Elle Macpherson's boyfriend and has, you know, bought $1 million mansion in Austin, while he stands up and he talks about researchers who live in small middle-class homes and drive Hyundais, you know, doing it for the money. I mean, the guy is an unbelievable hypocrite.
That is a very profitable grift, apparently, as so many in American politics seem to be. Well, this is incredibly fascinating, and I want to remind everyone watching this, there's a book where they can find out much more about this sordid tale, The Big Lie Inside the Fraud That Launched Today's Anti-Vax Movement, available as of just last week. And congratulations on the book, Kurt. Very much appreciated our conversation.
Thanks for having me.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.